Welcome to A State of Mind, the podcast that brings together consciousness, meditation, mindfulness, psychology, psychedelics, and so much more in pursuit of this mystery we call life. This is Julian Royce. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you are all doing well and weathering the storms that 2020 continues to throw our way. It's been quite the year. But I'm not going to get into all that right now. I'm going to talk about today's episode, which concerns a heavy subject and one that has been covered multiple times now on this podcast. And that is the subject of sexual abuse from a teacher or guru. I guess the bigger subject is abuse in spiritual communities. So here's a trigger warning. If this subject is very disturbing to you, you may not want to listen, or you may want to wait to listen to this at a time when you feel ready to do so. So today I'm speaking with Samantha Emmitt, and she courageously shares with us about her story. And I use the word courageous here intentionally. It's not just that she is sharing her story here, but that she's actually done a lot of work, a lot of psychological work, and for lack of a better word, spiritual work around this since she left this community. And it's a community that she called home for many years. So for me, getting to hear about her journey of healing and wholeness that she has been on since leaving this community was really moving, and it really shone through in our conversation. I don't want to give too long of an intro here. I think our conversation really does speak for itself. But to put it in a little more context, Samantha lived for a while at a community in Bali, led by one Ratu Bagus. And he calls himself an energy master. He calls his meditation practice, quote, bioenergy meditation or shaking meditation. And he has students coming from all over the world to learn this from him. And Samantha says in our conversation that the practices that she learned there really do help people. She saw people healing, sometimes in pretty amazing ways. So I don't want to discount that. I do think it's interesting to note the connection that Ratu and obviously other people as well are making with science. You know, and for me personally, I'm a big fan of bringing spirituality and science and all different kinds of disciplines together in constructive ways. And I recognize we really need to do so carefully and critically. And I was just reflecting on this idea after recording this of this idea of shaking to release trauma. It's not a new idea. And I believe that the concept comes in part from the brilliant scientist Robert Sapolsky. He wrote a book called Why Don't Zebras Get Ulcers? And it's a great book, highly recommend it. It's about 25 years old at this point. He discusses science and the biology of stress and how zebras and other animals, if they are pursued or attacked by lions, or predators out in the wild, if they escape to safety, they will then shake for a period of time afterwards once they're safe. And they are releasing the trauma of that experience, letting that energy out of their nervous system, the fight-flight that has propelled them to safety. And I actually have this memory. I remember being at a kind of hippie festival, and this guy gathered people together for his workshop, and it was on releasing trauma by shaking. And he had everyone think about, their trauma to some degree, and then jump up and down and shake. If only it were so easy to heal trauma. Then there would be a lot less need for trauma-informed therapists like myself. But sadly, it's often not so easy to do, and humans are much more complex than zebras and other animals. If you actually read Sapolsky, he does a great job of pointing out how humans differ from animals. And one key way is we can cause changes in our nervous system just through language and just through thought. For example, if you think about a person that makes you angry, or brings up some emotion in you, perhaps like Donald Trump, I don't know, it can cause you to actually experience anger or whatever emotion that brings for you. And then that's a measurable change in your physiology and in your nervous system. And so that's actually exactly why I gave a trigger warning at the start of this episode. It's because hearing about certain topics can cause a lot of emotions in us. And, these emotions often come for a good reason. It's totally legitimate to feel anger and to care about something like this. But in any case, humans are more complex than animals, and this thinking process or capacity for language and conceptual thought and for memory is part of why trauma can be stored in our system and can affect us for so many years after the fact. So a big thanks to Samantha for coming on this podcast and sharing all of her wisdom with us. And without further ado, I bring you Samantha Emmitt. So I'm here today with Samantha Emmitt. Samantha, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah.
And you're here partly because of an experience with a spiritual group, and I think I just want to start off hearing a little bit more about your life in general. I just learned you grew up in Boulder.
I did.
So
yeah,
that's actually kind of unusual to grow up in Boulder, Colorado.
It is.
Everyone moves here, but no one's from here.
Yeah, it's true. I consider myself a unicorn, a Boulder unicorn. Yeah, I actually grew up in Jamestown, Colorado, which is a little mountain town. I went to elementary school up until second grade, and then I came down to Boulder and went to Foothills Elementary.
Oh, so Jamestown is a tiny town up in the mountains.
It's tiny.
Hard winters, right?
Yeah. I lived not in Jamestown. I lived a little bit outside of it. But yeah, it's definitely, it got hit pretty hard with the floods. I
remember that.
Anywhere in Colorado, I think Jamestown got hit the hardest, from my understanding. I wasn't here at that time though. But yeah, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. I grew up in a really musical family.
Oh, cool.
A lot of music in my extended family, as well as my mom, my dad, my sister.
What kind of music?
Well, my uncle is a bluegrass musician, and I grew up going to a lot of shows. My dad would have shows in bars.
So yeah, your dad was a bluegrass musician?
My uncle is a bluegrass musician. He is a bluegrass musician.
Oh, cool.
He's part of the group Leftover Salmon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep.
They're pretty well known.
They are pretty well known. So he is the mandolin player. His name is Ratu Bagus. And then my dad was in a few bands while I was growing up, so I would go to bars at a really young age, and I have these really strong memories of being in a bar when I was really young and not really understanding what was going on, but seeing that people were being very silly. and
so it was
just being
a playfulness.
People dancing and seeing my dad on stage, and my mom's a great singer. So I picked up a guitar when I was 13, and I've been playing guitar since then. Oh, cool. And I write songs, and I was in a band with my sister called the Emmitt Sisters on Spotify.
It's a good bluegrass name. Is it bluegrass?
It was, we called it soulgrass.
The Emmitt Sisters.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Avett Brothers, right?
Yeah, we're a little different than them. They're boys and we're girls.
Right.
They're not so much bluegrassy, more folky, I would say. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so that was, music was a great avenue for me for a long time in spirituality. So I used to express a lot of my expression towards, I don't really know what word to use at this point, but I guess spirit or God or...
The music is a big part of that.
Yeah, it was my expression.
Well, I think you're not alone in that.
Definitely not. And I think music is an incredible way to connect. And at this point, I feel that what we're all really seeking is just connection.
Yes.
And so
absolutely.
Music is a great avenue for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a good word for it, connection.
Yeah.
And I think music has this amazing quality of it can lead to like a more transcendent experience or like
Yeah.
losing yourself. It can also be
Totally.
super embodied, and it
Yeah.
can be very sensual,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, to me, it kind of like this spectrum of like hedonism to like transcendence. It kind of encaptures this amazing range of experience.
Totally.
Like,
Totally.
yeah. Well, how did like going to these bars when you were young? Was that scary or was that fun? Or
I think it was fun. I think I was always sad that I had to go to sleep. And I was like, okay, it's 9:00, it's time for bedtime or whatever. And I was like, but I think that it did something to my psyche to see my dad on stage. And I think that it, I don't know, I think maybe I idealized it almost, but like it's something that I saw as like really cool. So I think because of that, I wanted to strive for that for a certain period of my life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
My dad's a musician.
Cool.
So
I didn't know that.
That same experience of seeing him up on stage.
Yeah.
I didn't go to bars so much, or like restaurants more.
I was going to ask.
Events.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting that like seeing your father up on stage and wanting to emulate that maybe. And
totally. Yeah.
It's a powerful thing. I think I've heard someone explain like being loud, like the way we evolved, like, we pay attention to noise, to loudness, and there's a certain power in obviously being able to capture a group's attention and hold their attention, and entertain. And it goes way back. We've been, as long as we've been human, probably we've had drums around the fire, like music is something that drawing us together.
Definitely.
And I think it also, like, I was thinking about this the other day, like when we were in like little hunter-gatherer tribes or little villages, and it was late at night and there's a fire and if they're making a lot of music, it's kind of a way of like saying you're not afraid. Because if you're in that area, everyone in the area is going to hear you.
Yeah.
And they're going to know where you are.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to hide, you wouldn't want to make a lot of sound. So I think it's just interesting to think about that.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's like, here we are, like the animals know we're here, the other people know we're here. Like, this is our space.
We are here. Totally. Yeah. And it kind of makes me think about how like an important part of survival as humans is community.
Right.
Like a healthy human.
And there's safety there, right?
There's safety, totally. And music is a place that creates community. Like music is like a glue for a community.
Totally.
And also in a lot of ways, like getting loud and getting big and getting like attention can be a survival mechanism as well.
Right.
And I think
absolutely
on a small level as children, we learn how to do those things to survive. I know for me as a kid, getting bigger and being like, I need something. That's how I got something.
Pay attention to me.
Totally. Or I got like shunned for it, but
right.
Yeah. I kind of went off on a whole other tangent, but just about survival and community and
I think it relates to what we said we were going to talk about, which is that you connected with the spiritual community and the trials and tribulations thereof.
Yeah.
I don't know how, it sounds like you were interested in spirituality from a young age and there was something calling to you.
That's so funny you say that because I've been thinking about that a lot lately of just like, I think I was given spirituality. Like I grew up with a lot of spirituality around me. I grew up with a lot of ghost stories around me. So like a lot of like mystical stuff and a lot of like, I don't know.
Like ghost stories?
Yeah, like ghost stories. Like I guess mystical. I don't know. I can't think of the other word. But I think that also affected me a lot to be a seeker, I guess.
Right.
And to be...
And I think that's healthy for a period of time. I don't know if it's healthy to stay there forever.
I agree.
But to be able to explore, to be able to seek, to be able to find meaning, to be able to think about bigger questions.
Totally. I think there's seeking outside of ourselves and then there's seeking inside of ourselves. And I think for a period of time, for a long period of time, I was externalizing and I was always looking for something outside. Like I always, like the great mother and the great father. And ultimately I was always just trying to heal my relationship with my mom and my dad, and looking for this idealized version of them and trying to find that to heal where I might have, where they may have lacked.
Right.
Not because they weren't great parents, they were,
Right.
But no parent is perfect.
No parent is
And they
perfect,
were
yeah.
young, and I'm really unraveling the things around my parents that may have affected me to be susceptible to being abused by a spiritual teacher, in the way
Yeah.
that I was seeking.
That's a good connection. I think our parents aren't perfect. I think in psychology, we tend to blame our parents for everything. And
Definitely.
I think I've heard
That's true.
I've heard the spiritual teacher Reggie Ray, who now has his own criticisms online and all that, but I've heard him talking about connecting with the earth and letting the earth be our mother and let it be the mother that we can never actually have. And,
Right.
And he was kind of
Exactly.
talking about this in a conscious way where you could consciously enter into a relationship that feels more secure through some of these spiritual practices. And that's really interesting to think about. And I think you need to be careful with that kind of thing.
I agree, because that's still externalizing.
Yeah.
It's still looking for the earth for something outside. It's like, what's the next level of that? The mother inside. How do I mother myself? Because no matter what, that 5-year-old, that 7-year-old, that 16-year-old, they're all still in there. And they're all still throwing the same tantrum that they threw back then.
Yeah.
And so now as an adult, as a functioning adult, to come in and be like, I see you, I hear you, I love you, and I'm not trying to change you. Because all I wanted at that time was somebody to say, like, I see you. Like, you are hurting right now, and that's okay.
To be seen, to be held.
Just be seen. And I think that that's what we crave a lot from our parents, is to be seen and protected in that. Being protected where we are. So... Yeah, to not externalize even to that, even to Mother Earth. Yeah, we can get so much from Mother Earth. Like, yeah, that's amazing. Mother Earth is amazing. And we really need to source from inside.
Yeah, it's a good
and maybe
point.
Mother Earth helps with that sourcing.
Right. Could be a step on that process.
Definitely.
I like the way you describe that. And I like how you're introspecting. You're looking at your life and like, how did I... It sounds to me like you're kind of like, what is my role here and where I wound up and the experiences I had.
Totally,
Which is an important part of being more authentic, I think. We have to do that.
Yeah.
It's not about blaming yourself or blaming even
or blaming your parents.
Or blaming your parents.
Yeah. But also recognizing where there has been pain from our parents. It's like that's been a hard part for me too, is like I don't want to blame my parents, and I can still recognize where they might have dropped the ball in a way, and that's okay. Like I'm not going to like try to force myself to have compassion for them, because that's not authentic either, but I can start to understand it. And that by understanding it, I start to gain compassion, just through that understanding. And it's not forced. Actually, I let myself blame them. I let myself be mad at them. And through that process, I came back to being okay with it and recognizing that, like, okay, now I have to be the adult for myself, where there wasn't an adult for me. And I used to feel resentment for that.
Right.
Like, why couldn't you have been the adult, damn it? But now it's like I actually find myself come into a great sense of wholeness by practicing this.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's been very beautiful. It's also been really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because you're touching in with those parts of yourself, with those memories, with that journey.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Well, it's amazing that we have this capacity to heal.
Totally.
And that we can do this. And so you were a seeker. To get back to that.
Yep. Okay.
What age or like how long was that? Were you consciously seeking like that? Would you call yourself a spiritual seeker? Was that kind of your...
Totally. So my spiritual experiences, I found ayahuasca when I was 19.
Oh,
and it was really young, but it was funny because the first time I heard that word, I was like, I felt something wake up in me that felt like it was always there, but always asleep. Because I didn't know myself spiritually, but I knew that I wanted to. And so I heard the word ayahuasca, and I was like kind of like if you say bacon to your dog. And your dog's like, flip!
Like a light went off.
Yeah, like,
you were
yeah.
So did you sought that out?
Oh, yeah. About 2 weeks later, after I heard about it, I was in a ceremony.
Is that here in
And-
Colorado, or did you travel?
No,
or-
that was in California.
Oh, okay.
And I had a death experience where my spirit left my body and I went into the light, and I felt myself become everything and nothing at the same time. And I really realized that I wanted to take care of myself. And that was the first step in my spirituality, is I wanted to love myself more.
Beautiful.
Because I had a lot of self-hatred. I mean, my thoughts probably 85% of the time were horrible to myself. Really, really mean.
Self-critical, self-negative. Yeah.
Judging, you're worthless, you're a piece of shit. My mind really loves that one. Still to this day. That one comes up all the time. I'm like, hey, thanks.
And so when it comes up now, like, what do you do?
I'm not as attached to
It
it.
doesn't affect you as much.
No, I'm just aware of it. I'm aware of it happening, and that's actually an indication, like, oh, something's happening for me right now. Like, okay, something's up for me, and I actually want to become curious to that. Like, what is happening right now for you, Samantha? Like,
Curiosity and
introspection, instead of like, you're a piece of shit. Whereas before I would have been like, oh my God, I'm a piece of shit. Now it's like,
it's amazing how common such self-negativity is in our culture.
Oh my God, yes.
And I think that this is more common in our culture than maybe in more other cultures, more traditional cultures.
Yeah, I wonder.
I don't know that factually, but from what I've read and been able to research and learn, like, it's like there was no. This is another tangent, but like
Go for it.
there's this story that's like often told in Buddhist circles of like the Dalai Lama in the early 90s had these Western, people from America and Europe come to him and they're like, how do we work with self-hatred and self-negativity? And he has a translator there, and he wasn't able to understand what they were saying. He's like, what do you mean? What is that?
Interesting.
And the translator was really struggling, and they spent days talking about this. And I think this is one of the early conversations in the Mind and Life Institute, bringing scientists together. I think it was a famous scientist, I can't remember his name, who originally brought this question to him, and they realized, like, the word in Tibetan for ourself means self-cherishing. And so a lot of the Buddhist teachings are all about, caring about others more, not caring so much just about yourself, not being so selfish. But they didn't have, culturally and in their own language, they didn't have this idea of self-hatred. Like, that concept didn't exist in their minds. Yeah. And it's fascinating to think about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that is dangerous for somebody who does have self-hatred to then put others first. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So now, in our world today, we really need to work on this self-negativity and learn how to love ourselves.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, because there's a form of bypassing there to, externalizing. I might use that word a lot, but instead of being like, so there's this, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, and then it's like, okay, now I need to take care of other people. That's actually a form of bypassing, working on ourselves. Yeah. And I see this with facilitators where they're like, they get put on this pedestal, and then they don't want to, they hide behind that. Like, they don't want to become vulnerable because they're supposed to be perfect and all of this, and they're teaching and they're helping everybody else. But the most amazing teachers I have seen are the ones that talk about where they're struggling, where they feel they're failing, where they're learning, and
vulnerable.
And they're vulnerable because it's humanizing it all. Like, I feel like we're all trying to be spiritual beings, but like, what about being human?
Right.
Why can't we be that? Because that's also spiritual. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Being human is really uncomfortable. It's just really uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's awkward. Yeah. It's embarrassing.
So awkward. It's so awkward.
Everyone's putting up some kind of front, on social media or in Hollywood or whatever.
Gosh.
And the reality is different.
It is.
Our inner subjective experience might not match the external mask.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. So I want to go back to your story with the seeking.
The seeking. Okay. Yeah.
And eventually you traveled to Indonesia. I know that much of your story.
Yeah.
So was that part of did you travel all around the world? Did you?
I did some traveling. Yeah. But as far as like my spiritual traveling, I studied with Ratu for 5 years before my experience, before the abuse.
So, and Ratu is the name of this.
Ratu is a spiritual teacher, yeah.
And he's in Bali, right?
He's in Bali.
So I've just been learning a little bit from you.
Right. I should probably give some background to that before I bring that up. Yeah. Ratu Bagus is a spiritual teacher in Bali who created a bioenergy shaking meditation. And it's very powerful. There's no doubt about that. And he has an incredible gift as a human being to be able to open doors to different dimensions for people. People go there to heal things. There's a man that I've met personally that was healed of AIDS. Scientists wanted to study him.
Wow. So he went there with AIDS and he left there without?
Yeah.
That's an incredible story.
It's an incredible story,
Is that
right?
something you saw with your own eyes?
I knew him after he was healed, after he was cured.
You met him?
Yeah. But there was a man who was diagnosed with breast cancer. He was Australian, and I loved his story really stuck out to me. He went to the ashram and he was there for 2 weeks, but he was really in it. And the first thing that happened was, I think black goop came out of his nipple, and then white pus came out of his nipple, and he was healed of breast cancer.
That's a wild story.
Yeah. But
so these are the kinds of stories that would be told in this community, but it sounds like
definitely.
they're true from what you're saying.
I believe them.
You believe them? Okay.
I do believe them. I do believe in his abilities.
Well,
I do
amazing.
believe in the healing that happens.
I know that our minds are so powerful, and I do believe that healing can happen on the level of our mind and manifest through our body. I mean,
definitely.
That's something I do believe, but
yeah,
it's certainly outside our normal way of thinking about things.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this incredibly magical thing. It's incredibly magical, and I don't deny that. That doesn't take away from what happened and where this teacher was incredibly out of integrity with me. So that's the thing. Those things can exist at the same time.
Right. That's part of the tension here and part of the honesty.
Yeah.
And it also, to me, when I hear that, it, makes sense that you went there and invested time and energy.
A lot of time and
energy. You're not an idiot, right?
I hope not.
I hope not. But you know what I mean?
I think there's some of that, probably.
If we get into a situation that becomes abusive or negative, then afterwards that self-blame, that self-negativity can be so strong. Why did I do that? And you're blaming yourself and
totally. I wrote a whole song about that.
You're looking for healing, and it makes sense that you went to this place.
Yeah, and I did find healing when I first got there. So I went there one time when I was 23 or something, and I was there for 7.5 months.
Is it a commune?
It's an ashram.
Okay.
So a community of people praying pretty much or meditating or whatever. And so that was the first time I went, and I stayed there, and nothing happened. His wife was there. I never would have assumed he would have done anything. And then 4 years or so went by, and I got the call to go again. I was starting to really seek, and things were starting to break down. I had a lot of questions. And so I went again, and I dropped in. I was he really opened the door for me. I was feeling myself heal on these incredibly deep levels, and I trusted him so much because of that. I felt like he felt like my father, how I remember loving my father when I was a child, that complete love, there's nothing in the way.
So you had this surrender, this openness, trust
totally. Yeah, and then he started kissing me, and my first thought was, wow, he's healing my sexual wounds. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow.
And then he started putting his tongue in my mouth, and I was like, I don't like that, but if maybe he's healing the discomfort, constantly making an excuse for those actions.
What? So if we slow down here, was it just out of the blue? You were shocked?
I was pretty shocked.
Okay. And I'm assuming this happened when it was just the two of you together? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, So the thing is that he can feel where people are at. So if somebody's incredibly open to him, he can feel that. He can feel how deeply he can work with somebody. At least this is what I believe. And this is what I felt from my experience. And then there was a few times that we ended up being in the same place, and it was pretty much just me and him. There were like maybe some Balinese there. And he started saying, okay, give a kiss. And so I was like, oh, he was grooming me. He was really grooming me. He was making me feel really special. And then...
so right during this time, like you were feeling like he was giving you more attention.
Totally.
Which probably felt good to you because...
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he was choosing me. People were really jealous of me at that time because he was always calling me up to show an example of the shaking meditation and how the energy works. And
so you'd go up in front of everyone.
Totally. Yeah. Yep. Because you do the shaking meditation, and the goal is that the energy that he gives you shakes you. You don't actually do the shaking, and it's really crazy because it does happen. Like I've experienced that where like my body is like literally shaking and I'm not doing anything.
You're not in control. You've surrendered the ego. Yeah.
Totally.
And that's powerful.
It's Kundalini. Yeah. And so he starts bringing me up to show me this. So I'm pretty much in an altered state of consciousness at this point.
Right. So in that way, more vulnerable.
Completely vulnerable. Completely trusting. Like this is what I felt was a deeper, it felt like as if it was a family member doing it because of the vulnerability, because of the trust. And of course, I was 27 at the time. And so that was another part of that self-blame. You're an adult. You should know better, and a lot of people said that to me too. Like, and it took me a while to get over that. You're
an adult. Yeah, like we just talked about earlier, like we have different parts of ourselves that are at different ages. And
definitely.
The other thing I want to just name here
please.
Is the power of group dynamics. So you're in a community, you're living together. The leader of the community takes on this godlike status.
Yes.
And then if he recognizes someone else, it's never a community of equals. There's always like, oh, so-and-so is more spiritually advanced.
Oh my God, you're
so-and-so in a past life connected with the teacher or whatever it is.
Totally, there's a lot
of that. Or they've been here for 20 years, so listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And there's this hierarchy.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that in and of itself is bad, but we need to make it conscious, and we need to like understand how fucking powerful being recognized is, right?
Yeah. Like, the influence of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really good point. And it's also the self-absorption that comes with that for people who have been there for 20 years and think that they know. And what I saw with people who had been following him for a long time, they were not getting it. They were like really like just so
like just as neurotic as before.
Oh my gosh, yeah. They were like actually the more time that somebody spent there, the more crazy they became.
Well, that's interesting.
From what I saw.
Maybe that's another flag.
I think so, yeah.
You said that the thing he was teaching did have power and was helping people, but then when people stayed there for so long, they weren't.
They got cray-cray.
Maybe, that's interesting.
I got cray-cray. For sure, from staying there for a long time. But I was also, being, like, preyed upon. So that don't make anybody get cray-cray. But...
so that really, obviously, is messing with your head. What's going on here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he told me that God chose me. Well, and his wife, she's English. She ended up going, like, schizophrenic cray-cray.
Oh, wow.
She tried to kill somebody.
Whoa.
She tried to kill one of the Balinese women because she became so jealous, and she just kept blaming him for cheating on her, and everybody's like, Ratu would never do that,
She's living there?
She wasn't at the time.
She became schizophrenic?
She became pretty much like, I don't know if it was exactly schizophrenic, but she was so mentally unstable. She was dangerous. Literally dangerous.
This was his wife?
And this was his wife. So she was gone the whole time I was there.
Okay.
Trying to get better.
Okay.
But this is also a testament to another red flag, another like something's really wrong here. And so while she's gone, he starts trying to get me to be his wife. He says, God chose you.
Oh, wow. So he's literally saying those words to you.
Literally, yeah.
And is he saying to you that he wants you to be his wife?
He said, I want to have babies with you.
Okay. It's pretty direct.
It's really direct,
I guess that doesn't have to involve marriage, but...
I guess not. But yeah, he said, I think God chose you. And this is how I've been studying manipulation. He planted this in me. I think God chose you. I want to have babies with you. And then just feeding me that. And then I'm trying to like filter a little bit. Yeah, and so he planted it in my head to feel this way. I can't remember if he specifically said, I want you to be my wife.
Sure,
but he alluded to it so many times. And he gave me a ring.
Oh, wow.
He also gave me this huge necklace. I still have them. I tried selling them on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Does anybody want it?
Well, I guess part of your story here is he's not saying, I want to be with you. He's saying God chose you. I just thought about that. Like, that's an interesting...
Yeah, it's a power dynamic right there.
For sure. And that he can somehow speak for God in a way that normal people can't.
Exactly. Yeah. You just like hit the nail on the head with that. And that's how everybody looked at him. So people stopped listening to themselves, that externalizing again.
Right.
They're always looking at him to help them understand. And then, and the other thing about it is like, he's infallible. We sang a song. I can't even believe this. There's so many red flags. We sang a song, Ratu Bagus, never, never, never wrong. We sang that every day.
Wow.
Saying that he's never wrong. I mean...
Every day you would sing that?
Pretty much.
So it was a real, kind of the classic guru worship situation.
Yep. That he's never wrong. He's perfect. I saw him scream at somebody, embarrass them in front of the whole group. It was horrible. It was so mean. He said, I heard him say horrible things to people, like commenting on their weight, commenting on how they looked, putting them down, like horrible things. Was this
couched in like, this is crazy wisdom, or this is like wrathful wisdom?
Yeah. Well, people would say, oh, he's trying to help her heal her daddy issues by screaming at her. That was the thinking of the whole ashram. Like, oh, he's trying to help you do this. And that was a huge part of my healing, because my teacher now, she's a woman. She's amazing. She's incredible. She helped me get through this.
Do you want to share her name?
Yeah, her name is Elle.
Elle?
Elle.
Okay.
I actually don't know her last name. I've been working with her for years.
Interesting.
If anybody wants to know more about her, I would say that you could reach out to me individually.
Sure.
I'd be happy to share it, because
working with
she's
her has
amazing.
helped you heal and understand.
Yeah, because I was like, what if him kissing me and him doing all this was to heal me? And she said, I'm helping you process this right now, and I'm not putting my tongue down your throat. I was like, touche.
Right, like that's not necessary.
It wasn't necessary.
Interesting,
We never have to heal through abuse. And I watched him abuse people. I watched him gaslight people. I watched him like yell at people, like not even gaslight, like straight up verbal abuse. He did it to me all the time, you know? He would gaslight me, like he tried to have sex with me and I said no and just like left.
So you said no to him.
I said no to him, and that was like the only no that he actually respected of mine. Other than that, he never respected when I asked him not to do something. And and he later was like, thank God I said no to having sex with you. He said that as if he said no. And then he pretty much slut shamed me.
In front of the community?
Not in front of the community. No.
Okay.
No, in front of the community, he had to keep up this facade of like, nothing's happening between Samantha and Ratu. Nothing's happening. If you think something's happening, you're wrong. Something's wrong with you.
So you just denied everything.
Oh, for sure. And then when I came out with my story on Facebook and was like, yo, this guy's fucked up, people liked to tell me about how he was trying to heal me, or people said things like, you have the devil in you and you need
They would
to
say
come
that
back.
to you?
They were saying that to me. Yeah, you need to come back to it. That's a classic one. You got the devil in you.
There's a lot
you
of Christian language in this.
Is it? Yeah.
More than, does he call himself a Hindu, or does he?
Hindu.
Okay.
I always thought that was interesting, though, because it did kind of remind me of
the devil. That's such a Christian concept.
They talked about demons all the time.
Okay.
They demonized emotions, like you should always be happy. Some pretty intense spiritual bypassing. You should always be happy.
And my skin crawls when I hear that, because that's such a cornerstone of what I try to practice is being with, what's here.
Yeah.
Should always be happy. Yeesh.
Always be happy. So all these people are laughing and smiling and...
This little bit of a performance. Like, look how happy I am.
Such a performance. And I was in that performance. I was sitting next to Ratu, like, pretending like I was so in love with him and pretending like I was so happy. And I was pretty much I was doing a lot in that community. I was holding the share circles. I was holding song circles. And on top of that, so many people either hated my guts, loved me, envied me, all sorts of emotions from all sorts of people were just like constantly coming at me. Tons of jealousy. Yeah. People would say things about me in the share circle about like, I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot for one person to carry. And I thought I was going to lose my mind.
Yeah, it is a lot. And it sounds super, just super intense.
It was super intense.
I guess the quality of cults, for lack of a better word, is they can be all-consuming, right? Like, it takes up your whole life, everyone you know, everyone you're interacting with, everything you're thinking about.
Totally, 100%. And there's also this promise that if you do this, you're going to get somewhere.
Right.
Like Ratu promised, if you follow me, you're going to get to heaven. When you die, you're going to go to a good place. Your family's going to go to a good place. Everybody you love, you're going to, you are the change. You are the chosen one. Stuff like that. So. Yeah.
Well, so now you came out with this on Facebook, and it sounded like other people had similar stories.
Not so much, unfortunately.
No? Okay.
There were a lot of people who didn't step forward and to say, like, anytime that they felt him creep on them, except for one woman who he tried to kiss her and she just didn't go for it, and she didn't get deep into it.
So you think there were other women that may have experienced this have stayed silent? Yeah. I do, actually.
I noticed that as I came out with my story, I felt like I was being burned by a community. I felt like I was being burned at the stake for speaking a truth. And the people who were silent, there were tons of people there were a few people that knew that this was happening, including my family members. And they stayed pretty silent. And I felt that they were holding the torch just as much as the people who were telling me that I had the demon in me and shit,
So family members that weren't involved with the group.
Yeah, that weren't involved.
I can see how that would be really painful too.
Oh my God, I was a puddle of pieces of nothing on the floor. I was a mess. I was such a mess. It was really, really hard. I felt like, but even through that, feeling like I was a mess and allowing, after coming back, letting it all out, taking all that shit from people, letting myself finally unravel. I was unraveling that whole year. I was always unraveling. But I was like trying so hard to hold it all together, and then I completely let it all go, and memory after memory after memory was coming up, and I sat with the memories, and I sat with them, and I let my body shiver, and I let myself and I let myself scream, and I let myself yell, no, 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 no. I let myself do everything that I didn't do for a year. And I had the space to do that. I had my dad, who was so supportive. He was so there. I had my teacher. The those are, those are the two people that I feel really held me at that time. And
It took a lot of bravery and then a lot of strength to go through that.
And it doesn't feel that way in the moment.
Right.
I didn't feel brave and I didn't feel strong. I felt like pieces. I felt stupid. I felt horrible. I felt ugly. I felt unlovable. I felt you name it.
So
I felt it.
Other people in the community were attacking you, or
oh, totally. I had to hold that.
So difficult, yeah.
I'm really proud of myself because as much as people were attacking me, I never attacked back. I don't even
So that feels good now.
I don't even know how. Yeah, I'm really proud of myself. I didn't see strength. I didn't see my strength until later. But as this was happening, I can't remember what it's called, but in Japan, when a vase would break, they put it back together with gold.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They glue it back together.
Yeah.
And the breaks are part of the beauty of...
Exactly, and it's even more beautiful than before. Yeah. That's
great. Well, I really appreciate you sharing this and this part of the story in particular because it shows the damage that was caused, and it's truly difficult. It's not a joke.
It's not a joke. Yep. It's not a joke.
And not everyone, I think if we're being really honest and realistic, not everyone can make it through that kind of thing. Or maybe eventually they can, but
it takes the tools.
It takes its toll.
There's
years, there's time, there's energy, there's a cost.
Yes.
To abuse, and it's borne by the person who was abused, and it's it can be really deep, and it can be hard to see. It's not like a physical wound; it's a psychological or spiritual wounding that then takes time to heal.
Yes. Yeah. Very well said. And it's hard because you can't touch it. I couldn't see I could feel that my skin, the wind on my skin was too much. I felt so fragile, but I didn't see any bruises. Right. I didn't see any cuts.
Right.
It was all inside, and it felt so physical at the same time, but it felt like it was like this open wound in my heart that... it was very painful. It was very painful. And I think everybody can heal from abuse.
Yeah.
And
I believe that too.
They need the tools. And they need to have the desire and the community.
Relationships to support you. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of vulnerability to heal from these things and to have somebody that we trust. That, like my teacher now, if we're processing this, I'm not putting my tongue in your mouth. Right. We need somebody to trust that's not going to put their tongue in our mouth. That's what we need.
It's like bare minimum.
Bare minimum, yeah. This is my requirement. And I guess that a big reason why I wanted to do this podcast too is I want to tell my story. Because I think there are a lot of people who have stories like this, whether it is a family member from when they were a child, whether it was a teacher, whether it was somebody in any position of power. That's the thing. It's a position of power. That's the key.
That's a really important point, and something I've been thinking about. And I feel like I'm really getting to a place now where I see the truth of these power differentials and how that can lead to abuse. And I think it would just be a lot simpler and easier to just have a guideline or rule or whatever it is that, makes sense why, like, a teacher shouldn't be in a relationship with their student.
Yes.
It makes sense why an attorney shouldn't be in a relationship, with their client or a therapist. And, and the same thing for spiritual teachers.
Yes.
Because like what your teacher now pointed out, you don't need that stuff to do spiritual work, to heal. Right. And so why, even if it were possible for a relationship like that to be good for both people, like why risk it? If someone's truly enlightened, they shouldn't be wanting that for themselves. So what's the use of it? That's kind of where I've gotten to with it. I mean, for the record, I have talked to, I've talked to a woman who's now a spiritual teacher, and she's really powerful, and she told me one-on-one, I'm not going to say her name, but she had some kind of sexual relationship with a teacher of hers, and she felt good about it, and she would agree with what I just said.
Yes.
So it was like a paradoxical thing. So
totally.
I just thought I would share that for what it's worth. But
Yeah. I think that no matter what, a true person of integrity would not take advantage of a power dynamic, whether they felt it or not. And in my opinion now, an enlightened person is not outside of the human realm. It means they might have those feelings towards a student, but they're going to stay in integrity.
Right. You can have those feelings and stay in integrity.
Yeah, they can regress.
Right.
So Ratu regressed. He had a regression. That doesn't take away from his gift. That doesn't take away from the power of what he does. It means that he's human. And it means that he did not integrate his spirituality and his humanness. He acted out in it, and he was out of integrity. And even being called out in it, he wasn't honest. So to me, he
lied to the group.
Oh yeah, he said that I jumped on him. He said that and so he turned it back on me.
Jeez.
I would have gained a lot of respect for him if he said, yes, I was out of integrity. I did something wrong. I am so sorry for the damage that I caused this person. Oh my God, I would have really gained a lot of respect. I would have seen him as a true teacher, because he would have given everybody the opportunity to break down their idea of the infallible guru who does nothing wrong. And they could come back into like the same level.
Yeah, and it would have been honest. It would have been
honest, yeah. It would have been giving everybody a gift, and he didn't. Because his pride is too important, or whatever it was. I actually don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, it's quite it's just an amazing story. And then just he goes, in your experience, he's like this godlike figure, this guru, to the confusion, the taking advantage of you, and then when confronted with it, he lies, and then you know that he's lying.
Oh yeah.
So then all your prior beliefs are kind of their illusion, right? It wasn't. You're also acknowledging his power, and that there's people getting helped, and
because
so
that
like
is
this
real.
paradox can be true, but
yes. It took me a while to accept that, though, because part of my healing was demonizing him, was putting him down, of like hating him.
So you went through a time of just demonizing him.
Totally.
And now you're like in a different place. I think that's an interesting part of this whole story that you're sharing in our world, and like how you can go from putting someone on a pedestal to saying they're the worst person ever.
Yep.
And the truth is probably more complex, but it's our human nature to like do this dance.
It is. It's a protective mechanism. So in the beginning, when he was the best person ever, he was my guru, he was blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, it was a way of externalizing. It was another way of externalizing. It was a way of, it was a regressed state in me to do that for him.
Point. Yeah.
And then I moved into demonizing him. That was a survival state because it was too much to handle. I couldn't accept any goodness.
Right. It's easier to just do that. Yeah.
I had to work through and sift through all the crap.
Right.
I had to do that in order to come back to balance. But the thing is that I see with people who are healing stuff like that, they get stuck in sifting through the crap. And that is also damaging. There comes a time to step out of that and to come into balance.
Right.
And that's where it's important for me to know I was a victim. I was a victim of sexual and emotional and spiritual abuse. And I'm not a victim now. And those are two very important things. I hold that victim. I hold her. I love her. I know you were a victim. But now, if somebody were to try to do that to me, I would choke them. I'm not a victim. I know better now. Wow. And that
so powerful.
It is so powerful.
I love that. Yeah.
It is empowering. And I came to this place for my own empowerment. I did that for myself. It was hard to get here because of the thinking that Ratu was doing all that to heal me. So if I actually heal from this, then he was right. So I stopped myself for so long until I realized I'm giving myself the gift of healing. And I am the one who is gluing back every single piece of myself with fucking gold.
Nice.
So that I could be better than I was before. And I give him zero credit for that. The only credit I give him is for tearing me apart, because he did that. He did a great job of that. I put myself back together. I did the work. I had guidance from my teacher, Elle, who I couldn't have done it without her. She gave me the tools.
Yeah.
She gave me the confidence. She gave me the space to help me understand myself. And from that understanding, I actually understand my childhood. I understand what made me susceptible to it. And with that said, I'm not blaming my parents for what happened to me. I want to make that clear. I don't blame them for what happened to me either. But what my teacher what Elle calls it now, that was my perfect storm. Because of what I was missing in my childhood, this happening was my perfect storm. It wouldn't be everybody's perfect storm. There are other women that, like the woman who said he tried to kiss her, she didn't go for it as much. It wasn't her perfect storm.
Right.
But there's another thing that will be her perfect storm. Not like wishing that on her or anything like that, but like there are other things that she would be more susceptible to.
Right. Totally.
Based off of her childhood, based off of what she is working on or whatever, you know?
That's a great point. In that different people have different vulnerabilities in this way.
Exactly, yeah.
There's this opportunity to heal and also to be more damaged or re-traumatized.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And it also, that thinking helps me to have compassion for myself.
Right.
It wasn't that I was an idiot. It wasn't that I was stupid.
Right. I
There
think this
was
part is so
something.
important.
Yeah, there was something that was susceptible, and that's okay.
Yeah, but in your desire to heal, to grow spiritually, like, those are good desires. Those are good impulses. It doesn't make you a bad person or whatever.
Yeah.
I think part of what your story illustrates for me, to repeat again, is like when you get abused by someone, then you tend to blame yourself or think you deserve it, especially as children, right? Like if a child does something wrong, they get punished.
Totally.
Well, what if they're getting abused when they haven't done anything wrong, but they're interpreting it like they're being punished? And that's so painful, and these cycles perpetuate themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that actually, from my understanding, the shame that children have is also a survival mechanism. So as an example, if I'm a little 3-year-old and my mom's making me a sandwich and I walk up to her and I'm like, Mom, like I want a hug.
Yeah.
My mom happens to be thinking of all this other shit and she's actually really frustrated. She's like, God, just stop it. You're so needy. The 3-year-old is going to be like, oh my God, don't be needy. Don't be needy. And so the next time I were to reach out and say, Mom, I want a hug, the first thing that's going to come in is don't be needy. Because it's a survival. If you reach out, you're going to be rejected. And if you're rejected, your mom's going to leave. And if your mom leaves, you're going to die.
Right.
And so it's a survival mechanism as a child. And we need that. But now, as a 30-year-old, I don't need that. I don't.
Right.
I don't need to blame myself. I don't need to have that shame. I can work with the complexities of my psyche now that I'm older.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's taken you a while to get here, but here you are.
It has.
I mean, I feel lucky to get to talk to you now and like to hear your story, but to hear it from a place, like you're coming from a place of greater maturity, I feel like, and that feels really good to hear. Yeah. And to like honor some of the complexities and also call a spade, right? To like name something for what it is. Like that feels refreshing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think it's important to talk about things like this. That's why I'm having on the podcast. And then also to acknowledge the good that can come from meditation or from prayer or even a belief in God, you know, that has helped a lot of people. It's led to a lot of abuse too, but it's interesting that, just interesting how challenging it is to like have like healthy communities.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where, again, that externalizing, you know, because we can get the good stuff. And if we listen to ourselves, we're not listening to another person to tell us who we are, tell us who we need to be, tell us whatever, tell us the word of God. but we recognize that that word of God lives inside of us. And that is our navigation. That is our GPS.
Nice, yeah.
And so we can go to this place of like, ooh, this is such a beautiful meditation. This is giving me this so much, and yummy, yummy. And then something happens that is borderline abuse or whatever. That navigation starts to speak up, and it's like, hey, no. And maybe it's a really quiet voice. And it takes practice to be able to hush ourselves, to listen to that quiet voice of like, oh, are you saying no? Are you saying no? Okay, let's understand this.
Yeah, listen to it.
Yeah, let's listen to this. Let's really sit with this. And then from there, it's like this no is like, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to take what was good and I'm going to walk. And that to me is spirituality. That's the guru inside. That's the real teaching.
I like that. Yeah. Find the truth within, find our own truth, and then speak out against abuse. I guess in an ideal world, we could have a community that could, be able to handle a situation like this and move forward, or but it just seems like in so many of these communities, like if you took him out of the picture, what is left? Like it's all built around this one guru person, and that
just blew my mind a little bit. Whoa.
You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great thought. I'm going to chew on that for a while.
But part of what we talked about before the podcast too is like having a lineage, a more like established religion. You tend to find frameworks for dealing, like, if there's scandals with Buddhist teachers, but it doesn't destroy the Buddhist community. Hopefully not. I mean,
or the practice.
Or a Christian pastor does this or that, and a Jewish leader does this or that. But like, so I think part of what the problem, like we use the word cult, like it's a new, like this thing with this guy is like a new thing, right? He's not drawing on, he's not part of a lineage.
He's not part of a lineage. That's true.
And it's not that. For sure, abuse can happen within lineages. I'm not saying that, but that the lineage can be something, hopefully in theory, it's something that's holding great value that is bigger than any one individual.
Right.
And so...
Right. They can draw on the lineage to help the situation.
Yeah.
So if a teacher is acting out, then there's still the lineage to draw upon.
There should be, yeah.
There should be.
I think that's what how it's meant to function in part. I think it does, but it doesn't take away from the abuse that does happen and how damaging that can be. And it can be hard to, I'm coming from the Buddhist background. If you have a Buddhist teacher who's been endorsed by all these other Buddhist teachers, and then there's a scandal about them, it's hard not to doubt the whole house of cards. But I think, I don't want to be too cynical either. I think someone like the Dalai Lama is a great teacher. I think he's helping a lot of people. So it's not, it's not that, it's not black or white for me, but it's, there's certainly been a lot of abuses in all these communities.
Yeah.
And it's something to grapple with. Yeah.
It is. And I think that as humans, it's really natural to think in black or white. It's really natural to think like you're saying, like, oh, this teacher is bad, therefore, like, everything, just paint everything as bad. And it's something that this experience taught me. One of the biggest lessons that it taught me is that things that, contradictions or things that are contradicting each other can exist at the same time. So, for example, this teacher, he was out of integrity, he was abusive, he was very damaging, and he has this incredible gift. So to accept that, to accept both of those things and not paint the whole thing with shit is really hard. It's really hard.
But it's so honest, That's what we need. So we need more of that in our world.
Yeah.
Even in politics or wherever you want to go with it. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's most people believe that they are good and doing good things, and most people aren't. I don't know if anyone's really waking up in the morning and being like, I'm evil. Maybe there's a few. I'm scared of those people, but the people that we tend to see doing bad things, like from their point of view, they're doing what they think is right, and so.
That's a hard thing,
trying to acknowledge that, trying to build these bridges and be able to talk about these issues without the black or white. Because if you're if you're demonizing that whole group,
Right.
I mean, it sounds like they deserve some blame. It sounds like there's people in that group who are really unfair to you and hurtful to you too. And so
Yeah. That community failed me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they deserve to get that blame, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a blame from like a shaming place though, like you're wrong, you suck. But it's like a accountability, like the difference between
right. Yeah, like that
shame and accountability.
Yeah.
It's like there's an accountability that he needed to take. And I did have one person from the community who was like, I knew something was wrong. I knew something was off. And I feel that we as a community failed you, and I'm so sorry.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Out of the whole community, not very many people believed me.
How many people do you think are in the community?
Lots.
A couple thousand?
Yeah, for sure. It's in Australia, it's in England, it's in Germany.
So if they come across this podcast, they will most likely just dismiss it. They won't listen to it or think it's true.
Yeah. They'll think that, Samantha didn't get the lesson from Ratu. Poor her.
Okay. It's kind of like fake pity.
Fake pity, yeah. Bless her heart, you know. Yeah. But, you know, that used to really hurt. It did. And time is quite a gift because what used to really hurt doesn't really hurt so much anymore, because I've realized that there's this adolescent feeling that we all have of wanting to be liked,
right,
and wanting to be loved, and that will override our authenticity a lot of times.
Sure, yeah.
And I've come to this place of like, I would rather people not like me and for me to speak with integrity and to be in my integrity. And so if that whole community doesn't believe me and they don't want to even try, well, all right. I don't really give that energy anymore.
Right, totally. Doesn't need to affect you. I mean, it's like they would be so threatened to lose the belief in the all-perfect guru, so they can't.
Perfect way to say it.
They can't entertain thoughts that would contradict that.
Exactly. Yep. What you just said is perfect. It's so well said, because that's what Ratu would have given them the gift of breaking that down. And the people
you were saying that earlier.
The people that I know who did believe me, they had that all break down, and they are better people because of it. I mean, they also, they had to go through a lot of pain. It was very painful to have to wake up to your illusions.
Right.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks, and not a lot of people want to do that. Like, beliefs become some like life jacket that we're just like holding on to because we think we can't swim.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. But you take them off and you're like, it's so much better to not wear a life jacket in water. Yeah. I feel the water. Like, they get kind of hot.
Yeah.
Life jackets are good though, for other reasons. But, but if you're just taking a nice swim. If you're just taking a nice swim and you can swim, just take the life jacket off.
Well, so where are you now in terms of your spirituality and your path? And does it feel like, I mean, we just speak to it how much you want to, but are you, something like meditation still part of your life?
I meditate every day. Okay. Well, I haven't been meditating as much lately, but I have had a daily meditation
You still value that practice?
Oh, definitely. I do Vedic meditation now.
Okay.
So I like the Vedic meditation a lot. What's funny, this is something that I still struggle with. I can have a lot of judgment on spirituality because of my experience, and I think because there's still this part of me wanting to rebel and push it away and judge it. It's still a protective mechanism. So that's something I'm really looking at right now and really trying to work through for myself.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I'm actually, it's kind of funny because I'm finding tea ceremonies, and tea has become a practice for me that I'm really starting to get into. Yeah,
that can be so beautiful and powerful.
It can be,
Slowing down, smelling it.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, great.
And it just makes me feel really happy. Nice. I really love it. I do beading. I picked up beadwork recently, and that's opened me up to understanding colors, and I'm finding that colors feel spiritual to me. I'm able to see things more clearly. I'm able to experience things and love things because I can see the colors in them, like in nature, I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as spirituality goes, I think it goes back to right in the beginning when I was talking about connection. I don't really like the word spirituality anymore because for me, it's just connection.
Connection, yeah.
Yeah, connection to myself.
Spirituality is a funny word.
It is a funny
one
word.
definition or understanding of it that I like is connecting with something bigger than yourself. It's pretty simple. But yeah, the sort
what
of
is
connection
bigger than yourself?
Well, like the world, the planet, Earth,
that is
the
bigger
universe.
That is bigger.
Because it depends. So many of these conversations, then it's like, what do you mean by self, or what do you mean by the world? Yeah, I don't know, but just like our normal little self, like going around the world, like there's something bigger than me. It's about more than. It's not just about me.
Yes,
that's spirituality. Like that's all it needs to be. Like, could do something for someone else, for the world, for the future generation. Like that's all spirituality, right?
Definitely, and it goes back to what we were saying initially. As long as we're resourced inside ourselves,
right? Yeah.
And that's where it starts too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's that balance of being within. My teacher, what is the saying? To be in the world and not of the world, or is it the other way around? Not of the world.
You got it.
In the world and not of it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, she talks about that a lot, and I'm still trying to put my head around it. But it's the autonomy. Like we are autonomous beings being in the world and giving back to it from a place that is true. A lot of people give even though they don't have it to give, and they end up really hurting themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think if we are, I don't know what word to use, like in alignment or in our health or in our natural state, like it's a natural thing. Like we breathe and the plants breathe in when we breathe out. Like I'm not going around trying to breathe for the plants. Like if we were in, like we were in equilibrium, if we were living in harmony with the land, like, if it wasn't for, sometimes I think about like, if it wasn't for human beings, there would be no chickens, there would be no cows. Like those animals have evolved in their form because of our connection with them. There were dogs, like cats, whatever, like we're a part of the ecosystem too. We've helped create life. Like we can actually help increase biodiversity instead of destroying it if we manage it, if we manage ourselves and connect with the world. And so, I think what you're speaking to is important. Like we could give from a natural place where we're not being depleted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we're full.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't give enough to themselves, and that's we're afraid of selfishness.
Right.
In our society, and to actually recognize selfishness as good, as self-respect, and self-respect is also respecting others. So I personally love it when people tell me they can't or don't want to do something. Even if like we make plans and that day they're like, I'm not feeling good, I don't want to. I'm like, right on. I'm really proud of you.
Because they're being true to themselves.
They're being true to themselves, and that is a giving to me. That somebody who is being really honest and saying like, I'm uncomfortable right now, or Samantha, you hurt my feelings, or like I can have my experience where I'm like, ouch, I'm a horrible person, like the whole thing that I go through, and then actually being like, thank you. What a gift you just gave me. And so I think that authenticity and that, in a way, selfishness is just as much a gift too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like an intelligent, healthy sense of yourself, self-respect.
Yeah.
I noticed myself not wanting to use the word selfish in that way because I was like, it does have negative connotations.
It does,
but
you're right.
But we do need to take care of ourselves, absolutely.
Yeah, I've come to terms with selfishness. I've come to terms, and I've also surrounded myself with people who appreciate my boundaries.
Right, they respect them.
And they respect them. And by starting to express our boundaries and starting to express what we want and what we need, it's going to weed out a lot of people. So it takes a lot of courage. People pleasing, you can have a lot of quote unquote friends. But ultimately, they're not going to be there when you need them. So weed them out. Only have like 1 or 2 great ones. That's all you really need.
Nice. Well, it's been great having you on the podcast.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing your story and all your wisdom from it. You have any last words you want to share with us?
Yeah, I really want to thank you. I really appreciate your insights and how you listened and held the space in a very beautiful way. And also everybody else who's listening. And I do want to say that if this podcast or what we talked about brought up anything for somebody who might be going, should I look at it? For anybody who might be going through abuse or coming to terms with abuse that you may have had that couldn't recognize before, please reach out, get resourced, heal from it, and take time to heal from it. Don't pressure yourself to be somewhere that you're not, because where you are is the step that you need to take to heal. So I just want to encourage anybody who's listening, if you want to reach out to me, you have something coming up, I want to be available for you. Yes. And I can help give you resources as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So maybe we can put my Facebook page in with the podcast.
Each episode gets show notes, so just click on the notes, and I'll link to some of the stuff we talked about. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have found this podcast valuable, there are many ways in which you can support it. You can share it with friends and on your social media. You can leave us a review on your favorite podcast listening app. And you can visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/astateofmind. For show notes and more information unique to each episode, visit astateofmindplay.com. And to learn more about my work as a therapist, meditation teacher, and coach, visit julianocean.us. And please don't hesitate to send me a message or email and let me know what you think and contribute to our conversation. Thank you so much for your support. It is listeners like you that make all this so very much worthwhile.